The Indian indenture system was a form of debt bondage by which 3.5 million Indians were transported to various colonies of European powers to provide labor for the mainly sugar plantations. It started from the end of slavery in 1833 and continued until 1920. This resulted in the development of large Indian diaspora, which spread from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean and to the Pacific Ocean. On May 15, 1879, the first boat, the Leonidas, left India for Fiji, carrying the first 463 registered indentured laborers, mainly from Calcutta.
In the plantation system, the laborers could be physically punished for not showing due diligence, not working hard enough. So they were beaten up, with whips, and sometimes, they were slapped or kicked, both men and women, by the Sardar, the overseer. And so it was a kind of violent situation that they existed in. So even whilst working, if they did not show due diligence, they were beaten up. In the indenture contract, they were supposed to be here to work in the plantations for 5 years, but the labor rules were backed by penalties. So if you were insubordinate, if you question the overseer or Sardar about the task you were given, then that's insubordination. And if you insisted, you may get a beating, but you could also be imprisoned for that. And if you fell sick and they were not convinced that you were sick, then you could be taken to a magistrate and charged with absenteeism, and your contract could be extended for a week. So these labor rules meant that there was widespread abuse by plantation managers and sardars, and often as much as 80% of the grimitiers actually found their contracts extended over the 5-year period. So it extended well beyond the 5 years.
The Syria was the 6th boat to leave Calcutta, carrying indentured laborers. She left Calcutta on the 13th of March 1884, carrying a total of 497 passengers. Its journey to Fiji was uneventful, except that the route through the Indian Ocean and traveling south of Australia to utilize the prevailing winds took only 58 days, which was 2 weeks less than expected. But the voyage to Fiji was the last for Syria, as she ran aground on the Nasilai Reef only 4 miles from shore at 8:30 p.m. on Sunday, 11th May 1884. Many stories of the Syria was highlighted and written accounts documented, but the story of the rescue mission from Burenodo is one that was never written in any documented accounts. Upon careful study of the written documents about the Syria, somehow the stories and documents did not corroborate. This led to the researchers to turn to the Vanua archives of oral history.
The Vanua archive narratives or stories are captured in many forms, and the formally recognized forms of these narratives comes out in our ceremonies. In our ceremonies, that means the presentations of Yangona, the presentations of the whale's tooth, Kava, Tambua, the presentations of Mets, Masi or Tapa, and so forth. And so It is in these formal ceremonies where it seems like our history books are opened.
I think originally happened was that they went to villages in Tailevu, and they'd been going there for several years until they were directed by the late Rokotuimbao, Ratu Choni Mandreiwiwi, not to go searching in Tailevu, but perhaps go to Rewa. So they made contact with me, and I told them that there were people who knew the oral history of that time. That was in 1884, 10 years after Fiji had been ceded to Britain, that the Syria went aground, and that there were people in Northo who knew some of the stories about what happened on that day.
Commemorating tambong orang se kimi kalaikina, orang orang samba kimi chawurkon. Ya orang se kimi kalaikina se bagi dio bagi tini kandua. Sa kimi ndo ngole mbarabi. Na bono era mbulu tuki ngona kantana India ya na bono ya tuki na ni nonra vini ni mingasi. Na nonra lonio nonra titi na viu to na vi na China kakarabuatas. Sini tu bono ya. Mama da kina babina na bona ana embagi tin ka walu so ka ba ko kasakina bona na kasakina Syria ya na uno talon ta jaga no ritalonga ngas no ritalonga ngas kim mundo ngole bani mi binu kani mi bonwa ardo barte ki mi ngas gono bulbul kendia gono bulbul kendia biarutan bagan dora maile mbal barabi akim dongo kina ndo dushidi ko bulbul kendia ya ne bulbul kendia te tukina sona bashili te tukina sona kaun bulbul ya na harga do barita kreta na wanga pota chika me pole politina angone na wanga na Syria ko kasakina na India ndo kene osile ko ramo mbulu tuiki ya na
over the years, I had always heard, Indians don't belong, Indians are migrating because they don't belong. People of our, ancestors have worked hard on this land, but they don't belong. Those sorts of words has been something that's been part of our narrative. Imagine when we went to Inodo, and the first thing he had said was, oh, this is our old Kamunanga. It's a very old relationship you have come to renew. You belong to us and we belong to you. So it's not just we belong to him. He said we belong to you. So he actually said, so as indigenous people, he said, we belong to you and you belong to us.
And it was an amazing meeting where it was quite emotional, especially for those of Indian indenture descendants who were there, to hear the words from the chief himself, Ratu Naturanga Tuinogo, that you belong to us and we belong to you, because our people, our ancestors, decided to bury your ancestors on our land. They have turned into the land that we belong to, and so they have belonged to the land and we belong to the land also, and so we belong to each other.
That was, I have no idea why we didn't discover it earlier. And of course I asked, why didn't we know this story before? And we know that when indigenous people do some good, they don't go announcing on top of the roof. So it's been part of the narrative. And when I asked people for Navilada and Nabunrao, they said, well, it's our story, and we have been very blessed. We have prospered, and this story is something that's passed down to us. When I spoke with some of the other younger ones from Navilada, they said, oh, as children we were always rostered to go and clean the graves. Can you imagine on a political scene, we have been pointing fingers at each other, and here are indigenous people who have been rostered. Over the last 100 years, different people are rostered to clean the graves of our ancestors.
Iya, tamangu sering ngona iliu le ngol to kirajo na bulbul sa tija. So ngona sa so rongo to rongo tibunu. E sinirere to. Iya nugu gaya na tutuya kirang nugu le bolti kawi so mai talna. E kum do ke dia mai ngai ke. Num do bulbul ti ngai wi ko.
É um local ruída. Que não acaba de chamar não de biocani. Sara muito bulu tongo na Índia para ngele bono. Que não vale. Sa o ira sara ngele tu de bono ngono. O kenda na keno de bulu ngono ngono ka wada ngamda kam de ngomir ngana pa ni ngidi mitingo. Besar mai le no de ngono. Sara mai guli bakeno. Kimi musa kimsa maru tangna na bakasama. Angai lebar itu bermaram, angai maru.
The Maramambale, the Rokotundraketi, in the visionary leadership she continues to have, said that this is something that must involve the whole of the province of Rewa. Otherwise, this narrative will die with us.
Sa rorole ke tiku mai na reodi sa tiku butelenga me sa vaka sukumu ne so ni vala ni vingaravi me sar na dingo mikina vaka bonua na wekandango angai mino ni mingo na ngoindo na vaka nana no me vaka saranga endo na lewe ni vale ka tuta ni mai ndo na bonua me sa ngai ngole mai vale ngo na ka todo ko ni vidingo mi vaka vale me sa na vaka dor biroto ko ya ngai mataka ni vaka rumbuka me tiku na reodi sa tal-tal na marama me sa kau enduan na inratan-rata me rotu sala inrata toko mandangakin me bakana rotu sala rotu sa ti ko mai bana bolon-bolon ni tikina makau bakaturang ono sanggale kerana ratu no tino to keran rotu tu da kemanda bana buno rotu unrato kino rotu ke saron ni tewe ni ndam me bolungo me bagrita kini rotu sa tigabu me rotu sa bakamalu ataki ena bingara bi bakapanua bakarawa berta sa bagarita kin retu sa tingko buka puno asin nama kisara so ara sin nama ka bir na tiko na singa erngeri dan bimbi ni bidingo mina singa ati ka busar ngani ken sala iti wendo nan dam berta sa ndam to kin karto wara ka to na bingar buka puno.
When it happened, we didn't really realize what a momentous occasion it was, because we just kind of thought that it was something that needed to be done. Maybe we might have thought of doing that a few years ago, but I think the time was right. The Lord willed it. Everybody was ready for it.
A shed was built for the people of Northo for the whole day celebration. On the Rewa Day, the chief of Northo welcomed its family to its shed as they awaited the arrival of the Marama Rokotu Indriketi, the paramount chief of the province of Rewa. It is customary that when a chief visits another village or province, the hosting chief will prepare their finest mats for the visiting chief to sit on while awaiting the hosting chief. The shed that accommodated the Northo people were overwhelmed as the traditional butler from Valelevu, the house of the Ngoni Marama Rokotu Indriketi, delivered mats sent from the paramount chief for the guests' comfort while they awaited her arrival.
Yo apakiduri pakakina ni pakausa pakarita kato mai satu puli seranga me pakamuri pakamalu ane pala weekend na i-Taukei en buku ni non tu sama tingomi ngo en duanga na songko pakate ki kwa kan sinna pakarua te kitali non tu sa tingomi ngo tu sa tingomi asa sai kwa saranga tu sanga ita kato pakamalu ane vital no ane vise mati ngonongo tu sa tingomi pakanua sa pakande ita kasaranga ni tu sa tingomi pallebu besanga mai birnongan marambal ro tunde keti merto sale ni bono reo angkara bitu to sarna pala pakabanu pakareo merto pakila kini merto sa tingomi dina kesiningan di kapa kaposa tata kasarna na kini pala pakabanu pakaturang merto sa angkara bikina ne itu pakaturang ai balle besang.
In the Fijian custom, the Ingalongalovi is presented to high chiefs, delegations from villages, or confederacies visiting other provinces. In the days of double-hulled canoes, chiefs, while visiting other villages or provinces, would respect the protocols that existed, and before any member of the visiting delegation or chief would step ashore or on customary land, an entourage would be sent from the chief of that province or matagali to greet the chiefly visitors to their shores and land. This was a symbolic gesture by the welcoming chief from that province of Matangali, illustrating that the chief was more than happy to greet the visiting chief and delegation. The Ingalongalovi was presented from the Ngoni Marama na Rokutuindriketi Ro Temu Mukepa to welcome the Girmatius delegation on Rewa Day, the most chiefly tradition to be accorded any visiting delegation.
Ena ngona dhambi kina lutu ni tini kawalu tolu sama gul kawan. Mai tiga buta ke zona mati ni tuho. Ara mai ndo mata kina natura ngambale ki viti mesa sulio piti kina mati ni tuli ko Peritania. Ati u mengarabi mai kina na be baka tora ta kita ke viti. En non rai da na be liu ta kina ngono ya. E buno vina ko viti me mai te baka kina ndo na te ka bo weekenda. Kara kau mai kina na bekanda, mai India mer mai karapa na katakan rendre bimbi, kara mai bagai tabi tikiri kina na ngau noya. Untuk kilau na kasakati uni kena itu kuni, na kena talano enda bulida. Ena ngau na rata me mai kina setori wabu kitinga na moto batana manda, sesinga ni lotu bina kasarobiti. Di bagarau mai ado biento na century bo. Tini kasi onan raw. Non rata me mai na kene tuku. Enda mai wilika na mona liba. Anda ronga na kene talanoa ngau na samai sota kina na bubaleru ane katini kabani singa. Ni bula sandro mo ene tiku baga turanga mai bronodo. Anda mai redin dina kina na bi ka baga dori. Kena lolo malebu baga dori na singoya. Era lo mani kina na wekanda non rabu eti mai wai. En andale ni kunduana le daba na burra le buela le daba na oro i manua kaso ara bu eta kina non rambula ka bagai tabi kina na bunua baga turang on burronodo mera mai baga ndabori baga pinakan non ndabuke en singoya ka le daba o viti todo ndai sangai mi romo saka na keni talano sama itu mera sakati ko ndona kamunanga kamunanga Mengalovi sa latiko kina na ingay India na matakentay. Ang may bagarita sa katalanganin doon na ibesweng ko na itiko. May seguti tiko kina na namunimbula na matakentay. Ni alabina ka, di tingaw manakam na. Ningali bagandeo takana itu tundini mai valele mai murmasanga. Dirasati mo makanggal lobira. Na kanda raya mai nisingandai. Mai bagandei di bono murmasanga kiveira.
Like everything presented, there has to be an acknowledgement from the visiting delegation to thank and acknowledge the hosting chief for welcoming the visiting party.
On behalf of the descendants of indenture and their spirits, receive this kamunangan Ivanua from the chiefly grounds of Puremasanga, the Ngone Maramambale, Narokoto Indreketi, Navunivalu. I do not have the words to express this gratitude, but I do so from the bottom of my heart and most sincerely. I also offer this kamunanga to Almighty God because this sacred kamunanga is a symbol for peace, progress, and prosperity for us.
Na kaya pakai dhuringo na nito wakanana nusai koe mbeka indua na ngauni sala menda wakareita ka niki na nonondai wakarau na ituki o kenda na kau ni tamata dau bidingo.
The Isevusevu is usually the first presentation to be presented from the visiting delegation. The Isevusevu is presented to seek the approval of the hosting chief to open its doors to the visiting delegation. Without the approval of the hosting chief, no other presentation can take place. But on this significant day, the Maramambale Narokoto Indreketi had changed protocol. She chose to welcome the guests first, rather than the guests presenting its Isevusevu first, the most chiefly presentation to be done to any visiting party.
Nawekai rewa, nawekai nodo, nawekai viti. Era dami sakas-sakas kumain na matagabi na ganda. Naisip-sip na ibang araw nga, mga turangan ni Nandahunwa. E nanumime, mga dere-dere, mga langilingit sa katsulkin na nanonray siguro mga turang. Siap-siapun me kiri merengon ni merego marama meron dala basa nararani non rogin karabi meron da basa kamay na kalo na matagabi natin.
Now the traditional acknowledgement of the Isevusevu by the host to show that the Vanua of Murmasanga welcomes the delegation of the Grenadiers.
Na boleh una lo katurangan. Na boleh una pintu kai. Na boleh una kena numisa tina nonda Vanua. Dina sa main tonro ka na bangsa kema. Yo ni mai ti ko muni karam no ni ta mina Vanua biti. Pasara ra mababa mina sa kena nonda Vanua. Endai uni sa liso ka mai uni mai tu ni kemuni. En mata sa sa ko ni ta mekina.
The Mboka Vanua is presented to the host of the visiting delegation. This is to show the chief that whatever difficult situation Vanua had gone through, may it be natural disaster or the passing away of members of the Vanua in the time of their absence, the visiting delegation sympathizes with them in remembrance of lives lost and hardships past.
Nada kamu nanga sa chukuna awa kamu ni. Kamu ni turakan ratu na timo. Wani rawa. Wani turakan tinaw ni san kuno. Tira sa kana nonda. Era takasa. Ena non rantel ni mata sawa. Nangani turakan ratu. Era cinta walu sumu kaba. Sarang main tam besar juga turun nasi ngambil bis. Tosa kana ramu wai, tak kena mengici. Cukup sakit untuk pun. Sarang tam besar tal singa, lalu bempur kono. Sarap to kay melu bimbur kono to. El mata ke sarensi. Lain sa kachiko. Kari sa kachiko melu resa kachiko melu mata makaturangan. Enak keni pala enak keni parau. Enak keni posa. Kila iteng sa kachiko ni cucu makaturangan. Enak bengau nasa waji. Meta ba kachiko. Kamu nang sa talngan keni to turun sa kachiko bikamu ni. Enak nung ngau na ni bilu taki. Meron kento maroy katumber kakaroni. Enak lokal matangkangka. Kasi ni mul.
The Mboka Vanua is now received and acknowledged by the paramount chief of Rewa, the Ngoni Maramambali na Rokatu Indiketi.
Ena nomuni bi ko ngamai, ena nomuni bi buiti mai, nabi marroi, sanda mai sota batatal chukan mata kendai, ena Mboka Vanua sa mai bagari te kiti kongo. Ena singa indai sa ando na singa langi. Kima misa maro takalele na nomuni marau. Ele bana ni marau ke mami na numni sa mai tiko baka bano baka turanga menda mai bi karang karabitiko me baka rete kitiko kina nangauna sa sibi wat ke nangauna itiko taleni liu menda bilo mani tiko nga kanonde liu wat itiko kino choba menda bola.
This is the main presentation from the visiting delegation. The presentation is to present and make known the real purpose of the visiting party. A tambor or whale's tooth, food, bales of cloth and many more gifts were presented with this tambor or whale's tooth presentation. The person tasked to present this is usually someone closest to the chief.
Karena vengu balelai, kihir talanga, era kaluda, nirsai kali ni langi, kaisai koisra, na kalle wera be poko pini mina kata kasa tipo, nirleva na kena bosa ina manyo lala, eleva sa talanga na kena bosa, ni baka sama tegi wata mata, era tukuna, ni saya babala sa tipo na beo kanya, tinanga. Ni warin ni raw ni loray, warin ni raw ni mga malataki. Katero talangan ni mga Pilipina kataki. Na tigo mga turang yung burmasanga. Ni endengo, sabi ay mga ritaka. Noon ni sa mga dorin, doon na taka bibak kurumitaki. Ni beri ni bindi na sekondi. May hawal na puno ang bura no, mengkaraba na itabi. E nabukuna no kanda. Onisa, mga ritaka, mga takila. Nagtebo mandangahin doon na hindatang rata. Menatawi karmaroi karwanda labu butegi kina na rombolo lu sali ul ratu tino kan matraseta era mga tarasa tali tiwa nga ana buguli no ni kalo me dilon don so tiwa na matani singa dira nga ni re sa na bugo tule wa sa tiwa so na bakasa mo bo wendai ya kan na sa kanu nga nang gasora mana e duha sa nga na singa e dole kanan ramuai wa tiwa sa muri. Dosa kan itu di sulit juga saya. Bukan tahu yang fani saya cuma hakika. Nah non retiwa bukan Tuhan. Nah non ramanua. Kena botu ni tambah ni bingarabi. Na buku saya kan non rabi bukan tonu. Merok kati meraleo saya kan non rabu balik di sini. Dosa kan kamu nanga. Bukan retiwa saya tadi cuma ni tonu tambah buta. Rasa bukan buta rasa cuma itu buku. Mereting mama. Karena saya bakal mantaka. Nisan ndo kaditi ko na itambe watangango. Ana bingo no rana lala sa kina imbura no. Na tambe na itambe ndo kila kino imbura no. Merayalo ba marama. Nisan na durman yo sa kino na itambe watangango ni bingo sa marama. Be ba retaka. Irsa leo ni no rabanua. Karaboro ro sa kino na reto kino.
And 32 years ago, your ancestors gave a resting place to those who met their fate. And they were given individual burial grounds when slaves were often dumped in one grave. The respect and dignity your ancestors gave who rested in your vanua, connecting us to your family today, is beyond words. In our tradition, final rites are done by the eldest son, and in the absence of him, if anyone does the final rites, they are given the respect of the eldest son, and the families are indebted forever. Generations to come of our descendants will always be indebted to the people of Nodo and the people of Rewa for the acts of kindness bestowed by your ancestors on ours. You have set us free from bondage of slavery 100 years after the indenture period ended. By giving our ancestors their resting place, you've given us a sense of belonging. Gratitude we can't express enough. We are honored to have discovered and embraced this relationship today, and we pray this relationship will stand the test of time and will only gain more and more strength in years to come as we work together for prosperity of the Vanua. It's our collective prayer as members of the Vanua of Rewa that God will bless this relationship and that the chiefly grounds of Burembasanga, Namaramambale, Rokupindraketi, the chiefly grounds of the 9 chiefly Tikinas in the Vanua of Rewa be richly blessed. With all our humility and Lolo Mambimbi, Vinaka Vakalevu from all of us.
Just 46 years before the Syria ran aground, Rewa and the Rokupindraketi at that time had welcomed the first Christian missionaries to Vitilevu, led by Reverend William Cross, who arrived in Rewa from Lakemba in 1838. Christianity could not have been pervasive at that time, nor taken firm root in all the villages of Rewa. But it is my honest belief that the principles of love and kindness, the traditions of a warm, welcoming, and nurturing nature had been firmly planted. The very same spirit motivated our Northo villagers to such brave acts of kindness and nobility. It was in this same spirit that the men and women of our northern coastline dared to implement one of the greatest sea rescues of our history. Though they must have been bewildered and confused by the exotic new arrivals of another race and their language, the people of Northo girded their loins and paddled and rowed out to the Nasilai Reef in their canoes to pull survivors to shore. Stories passed down from generations, from our forefathers, tell of our defiance of the instructions of colonial powers to bury the dead in a mass grave, and instead honored each one by digging individual graves, as we would do for our relatives. The stories tell of the healthier of the survivors walking to Suva after they had recovered sufficiently. Stories also tell of the weaker survivors remaining in Northo for months, and after they had been healed and were fully recovered, also undertook the overland march to Suva, guided by their Northo rescuers along the road, which was just a track in those days. From the Northo coastline to Suva Harbor, because some were still weak and quickly overcome by fatigue, our forefathers say they had to sleep in a few villages overnight. And whether it was Arewa or Naitasiri village, they were given protection, food and drink, and escorted in relay fashion to the next village until they reached the offices of the colonial administrators in Suva. When this day is over, I would like to ask each and every one of us, present here today to take away with us the spirit of love and mutual respect that governed what must have been one of the first interactions between our races. Students of Ratusovoli Primary School, which is the Northern District School, and Northern Secondary School. Today is just a re-establishment of relationships. You have come home to Rewa, to Northern, where you belong. In the words of Tuinodo, you are Kai Northern and therefore Kai Rewa. Through our history, from the past to the modern day, Rewa has always been a force to be reckoned with. In 1838, we accepted the Methodist missionaries. In 1852, we accepted the Catholic missionaries. In 1884, there was the rescue operation on the Syria survivors. We fast forward, and leaping over one whole century to 2016, you are home at last with the Rewans. You are home at last with your fellow Rewans, where we together will be a greater force to be reckoned with. And together, we will build a future not only for Rewa, but also for Fiji. And we ask the Lord to bless us all.
Tegabuna ra ado mai na ngel miti tegabuna kena tegabuna matin tu ebiti ngona va koloni me ado me ngono se mara mandani dona matin tu se merni dona esana eviti se merni dona songo eviti me tingombir ngona ngiri miti me pakan dakilatu ni ara mai va bombuno tak a ocho bombuno sara tunga sini rewudi gitu mer sama pon dona pon o mo sara ke no ngoni ken dono to ara tu ramai shamata na tamanda rambulu tira na ngirimiti ramai shamane pio kena o kenda msande dingomira mer sara mai le bono